Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event today. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for being here. I saw a question about muting. You are automatically muted for those of you who have joined. But thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I'm Shelley Kind. I'm the Executive Director for the American Heart Association here in the Puget Sound. We have a really special CPR event right now that we're going to kick off in just a few moments. But before we begin, I have an important message from the AHA addressing the current situation in our community and in communities across our country that I wanted to share with you. Like you, we are all heartbroken by the tragedies that have taken place across our country. The memories of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and far too many others remain with us, and our hearts go out to everyone everywhere who is grieving and searching for justice. The American Heart Association denounces senseless acts of racial violence against individuals and unnecessary violence and destruction in our communities. As a nonprofit healthcare organization, we are taking a stand on social justice issues because there is a scientific evidence supporting the link between social justice and health equity. Racial disparities in heart disease and other chronic health conditions exist, and African Americans are more likely than whites to be uninsured. There's also evidence that their physical and mental health is negatively impacted by the inequalities that exist. Add this to the fact that in the midst of a global pandemic and given barriers to healthcare that exist, African Americans and other people of color are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. The American Heart Association has championed health equity for all people for nearly a century, and we're more determined than ever to eliminate racial and class disparities by redoubling our commitment to overcoming barriers to health and to addressing social inequities. We must stand together as a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. That is our mission and our contribution to a more equitable society. People are counting on us like never before. We will listen, we will drive change, we will be relentless. Thank you for your support and thank you for listening. And now I'd like to continue with our CPR program as scheduled. So we're here today to teach you how to perform hands-only CPR in recognition of National CPR and AED Awareness Week. We are recording this so we can share it with those who are unable to attend. So you will have pop-up. You'll have to click on continue to stay in the call if that pops up for you. We've muted the lines of the attendees, but you can communicate with us by typing in the chat box if you're on your computer or your Zoom app. You can also email us at puget.sound@heart.org. We'll answer as many questions as we can toward the end of our time, and we'll send out some info afterwards with additional answers to any questions you've got. I also want to thank Multicare Pulse Heart Institute for their support. Their funding helped us host today's event, as well as the hands-only CPR kiosk that is located at SeaTac Airport. So, to get started, I want to ask a trivia question. So choose the answer on the screen that's popping up now. about how many cardiac arrests happen outside of a hospital each year. Choices are 175,000, 250,000, 350,000, or 425,000. Okay. Great. Thanks for answering the poll. So the answer is 350,000. With so many of us at home with our loved ones these days, knowing what to do is more important than ever. So we all probably know someone that this has happened to. And so I'd now like to introduce someone who knows all about this quite personally, Laura Vanderpool.
Thank you. So I'm here today to tell my story. So as you listen, I want you to think about my friend Sarah that was with me. At some point in your life, you could either be the me in the story or a Sarah. It was a beautiful sunny Saturday in May, and my friend Sarah and I had signed up for one of those fundraising bike rides. I don't remember anything about the day, but I've been told I was having a great time. I was laughing and joking around. And about 10 miles into the ride, somewhere near Marymore Park, I slowed down a little and without warning just fell over. Sarah stopped her bike and stared uncomprehendingly at me on the ground. Had I fainted? Hit something? The last thing any of my friends or coworkers would have expected was a heart attack or cardiac arrest in this case. Not me. I had healthy eating habits and I ran around Green Lake every morning. I got regular doctor checkups, all that stuff. Not me. So after trying to get me to respond to no avail, Sarah started to panic. She had no idea what to do and just started yelling for help. Another rider stopped to see what was happening, and together they managed to call 911 so they could provide the dispatcher with the somewhat vague directions that are the best you can give when you're on a bike trail and in a panic besides. All she could do now was pray that they would get there on time. Miraculously, a short time later, a young man also riding in the event happened on the scene and drastically changed the course of my story. He had coincidentally, within the same week, gotten his EMT certification. Seeing her distress and me unconscious on the ground, he stopped to help. He quickly assessed that my heart had stopped beating and began giving me CPR. Thankfully, Medic 1 figured out where we were and arrived pretty quickly to the scene to take over. I was given defibrillator shocks, which also resulted in establishing a heartbeat, then was hoisted into the aid car and immediately put into what is called an induced hypothermic coma. This is done, as I understand, to improve mortality and neurological outcomes in patients who have experienced cardiac arrest. The next thing I knew, it was 3 days later. I was in a hospital bed looking at my husband and saying groggily, "What happened?" I was told that while I was in the coma, my cardiologist had to prepare my family for the worst. My husband and middle school aged daughter had to consider the possibility of me either dying or living with brain damage. My own mother had called in the family priest. What had happened was, when I finally was taken into the operating room, the cardiologist found that I had an almost complete blockage in my left anterior descending artery. This kind of heart attack is known by the catchy term, the widowmaker. The doctor and everyone else in the operating room were blown away. I simply wasn't the type they were used to for this kind of diagnosis. The only explanation the doctor could come up with was, it's in my genes. Fortunately, with the cause now determined, it was a 10-minute procedure to pop in a stent. Well, what's the takeaway from this? First, there isn't a type. There isn't a type of person that has a heart attack or sudden cardiac arrest. It can happen to anyone. And second, and more importantly, CPR saved my life. That young man who stopped to help kept me from dying until help could arrive. That young man, by the way, is Mark Bernlino. He went on to become a firefighter with the Shoreline Fire Department, where he is today. Mark will always be my hero. Now, while Mark received special EMT training to learn CPR, it's something any of us can and should learn to do. Statistics show that around 70% of out-of-hospital cardiac arrests happen in homes. Likely the person you will be trying to save is a family member or a friend. Immediate CPR can double or triple a person's chance of survival. So as my story has shown, cardiac arrest can strike at any time. For the victim, every second will count towards survival. I was extremely fortunate to have received CPR quickly. I can't stress enough how important it is to teach CPR to as many people as possible. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Snodgrass to give us some context about heart emergencies overall.
Thank you. These stories are not uncommon. Through my 45 years of working in medicine in this area, I've heard this type of story over and over again. And the key difference in almost all of these is bystander intervention, whether it's family or stranger or just sheer luck. I had one young lady who was running the Seattle 5K, crossed the finish line, dropped dead at the finish line in front of the fire department. I don't think all of us are going to be that lucky. Now, my first experience with the need for bystander intervention was in 1975 when my father died of a heart attack. He was transported to the hospital by a dual-purpose vehicle from the funeral home that later transferred him to the funeral home. So the evolution of care in this area has been simply amazing. At this time, I think the greater Puget Sound region is the best place to suffer this type of emergency, with one caveat. There needs to be a bridge between the occurrence and the treatment, and that bridge is citizen activity. Learning to do three things in that bridge: recognize that there's an emergency and what type of emergency it is. Activate the system, call 911. And thirdly, initiate treatment if possible. In this case, hands-only CPR. Hospitals and first responders are more than ready at this time to not only treat you, but to protect you from the potential of this pandemic. So we are going to talk about cardiac arrest, but first we're going to talk about two other very common emergencies. The first one is a heart attack. Now, not all symptoms in the heart attack are similar because different areas of the heart can be affected. The most common one we hear of is chest discomfort. Most commonly, this is discomfort in the center of the chest. Many people describe it as an elephant standing on their chest. It can be a squeezing, a pressure, or a fullness. Along with this, especially in women, which often have a different type of vascular abnormality, you can have discomfort in other areas of your body, including the neck, the jaws, the back, the shoulder, or the arm. Any type of persistent discomfort for more than several minutes in those areas should cause you to initiate 911. We also often will have shortness of breath disproportionate to the activity, or paradoxically, without any activity, and you can break out into a cold sweat, become lightheaded or nauseated. The other thing that quite commonly is an initial warning sign is palpitations. Irregular heart rate, strong heart rate, racing heart rate with any of these types of symptoms is an emergency. Along with heart attacks, the other treatable thing is stroke. It's amazing how far we've gone in stroke from the time where we could maybe give them an aspirin to now you can actually have a radiologist snake a little catheter up into your brain and pull the clot out. But you can't get to there unless we do those first things: recognition. So with a stroke, we use the word FAST, F-A-S-T. F stands for facial drooping. What are your face goes down? Facial numbness, asymmetry of the face, inability to open the eye. Any difficulty with facial motion should cause you to ask the person to smile, close their eyes tightly, and should cause you to immediately call 911. The A stands for arm weakness, but it really stands for weakness of any limb. Weakness in grip, weakness in the ability to use your arm, weakness in your legs, stumbling, and other types of weakness in the body should cause you to ask the patient to either grip your hand and see if they have strength adequate on both sides, or move their arm. Once again, we need to initiate 911. S is for speech. It can be slurred speech because their face is numb like this or their tongue doesn't work. It can be garbled speech as a different part of the brain is affected by the lack of oxygen. It can be speech that is nonsensical. And so if you're unsure, ask the patient a simple sentence. The ball is red. The dog jumped over the table. If there's any question, we go to the T, and that is time is of the essence in this. You need to dial 911 immediately and have this person transported. The brain is dependent upon oxygen supply and can only last for 5 minutes before degradation or damage begins to occur. So the quicker we can get them to the emergency room, the better. And one other thing we need to remember, and that is there's often a hesitance to call 911. You don't want to appear foolish. I don't want to be the guy that goes to the emergency room and it's only heartburn. Well, you really don't want to be the guy who doesn't go to the emergency room and winds up dead or paralyzed or dysfunctional for life. And we see it occur time and time again. Lastly, we want to talk about cardiac arrest. And the signs of cardiac arrest are sudden loss of consciousness or unresponsiveness, and you can shake them. We often do what's called a sternal rub to see if they'll move, and abnormal breathing. So that can be no breathing at all, or it can be different patterns of breathing as the brain descends into what we call the reptilian breathing patterns. But if this person is down and they're unresponsive, it doesn't matter. You need to call 911. You've recognized it. You need to activate the system, and you initiate hands-only CPR. So that's pretty much what I have to say, other than saying thank you for taking the time, because statistically, one of you may save my life. And also stay safe out there. And now on to the captain.
Okay, turn around. Save this space. Hi, I'm Captain Jeff Hendricks, Port Salem Fire Department, and here I'm going to demonstrate hands-only CPR. So I know you guys don't know how to have a dummy at home, but if you can find something firm, like a pillow or the bed or the couch or something that's firm, you can practice on that. But the most important thing with Dr. Snodgrass is call 911. Activate the EMS systems. Get us there. But when you see someone down, biggest thing, identify, hey, buddy, you okay? And if you're unresponsive, call 911. If you have somebody with you, have them call 911. What's nice with technology, if I'm by myself, I can take out my cell phone, put it on the speakerphone, and the dispatcher will guide me through if I forget what to do. It's so important. So call 911, shake the person, and you're going to use your 3 senses. You're going to look, listen, and feel. I'm going to look to see if they're breathing. I should hear it or feel it on the side of my cheek. If those are absent, I'm going to start CPR. So I'm going to expose the chest, pull the shirt up, and I'm going to use imaginary nipple line as my guideline. I'm going to take the bottom of my wrist right here, put it right in the middle of their sternum with my right hand, take my left hand, and pull it up. Now the key is to keep my arms straight. I'm going to use my whole upper torso, and I'm going to continue to press down about 2 inches. Now the key is when you press all the way down, you have to make sure you don't leave pressure on the heart and go all the way up. So just press. And the song that we usually do is Staying Alive. And the beats you want to do is like between 100 and 120 beats per minute. And it's so important. Arms straight, straight down on the patient, on the chest. And just continue to do CPR until EMS arrives. Okay? So we're going to do this again. You have unconscious patient, shake them, they're not responsive. If you have somebody, have them call 911. If you're by yourself, call 911, put it on speakerphone. because the dispatcher will guide you through in case you forget. You're going to expose the chest, okay? The imaginary nipple line is your guideline. You go straight across. Use the heel of your hand, put it right there on the sternum. Grab my left hand, go up, arms straight. The key is upper torso, compressions down, okay? Remember, 2 inches between 100 and 120 beats per minute. And I'm going to continue to do this until the EMS shows up, okay? Remember, press all the way down, all the way up. Hard and fast is the key. Hard and fast. Call 911. Those are the keys you need to do. Okay, Shelly, back to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, all of our presenters. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll have time to answer just a couple of those. But in the meantime, I would love to do another quick survey question. So when you're performing CPR, what is the rate of compressions that you should do per minute? 60 to 70, 80 to 100, 100 to 120, or 130 to 150? Give everybody a moment to answer that question. Wonderful. Thank you guys for doing that. Of course, the answer is C, 100 to 120 compressions per minute. So thank you all for participating in that. We do have a couple of questions, so get ready. Captain Hendricks, coming your way. The first question we have here from Elizabeth is it possible that you'll hear a person's ribs or sternum crack? Come off mute, Captain Hendricks.
Hello?
Yeah.
You hear me now? Yes, it is possible. You might, the cartilage on the ribs on somebody small, or if you press too hard, but don't worry about that. It'll be like a click, but continue to do CPR because that can be repaired later on when they survive. But CPR is so important. Don't worry about that. A small person is going to be easier to push on than a larger person.
Great. You can stay at the ready because the next question's for you as well. Is the rhythm and the timing the same for an adult and a toddler for CPR?
Yes, it is. It's all about between 100 and 120. That's what made it simple, an infant, child, and adult. Because a child is just one hand, and an infant is just 2 fingers. An adult is 2 hands.
Thank you. Here's another question. What if the person responds to the CPR? What's the next step before the EMS arrives? If the EMS hasn't arrived yet and they've been responsive.
Oh, if they're awake, that's good news. You did a good job. Just when you're stay on the phone too with dispatch, and then tell them what's going on. So then when they call the fire department, they can give us a heads up. Hey, this person now conscious and alert. So that helps a lot. And if they start to vomit, just lay them to the side. Okay, so they don't aspirate.
Great. We've got a couple of questions about this, so a couple different versions, but how important it is to lift the shirt, and for women, would it be important to remove a bra before doing CPR?
Okay, you have to get good hand placement. That is the key to get hand placement. But a female, when we shock somebody, we remove the bra. It doesn't matter. We use the AED called automatic external defibrillator. When they go in cardiac arrest, we have to shock them. So we remove everything, male, female, on the chest is going to be off. But yes, you have to get good hand placement. That's the most important thing. One of the most important things.
Great. And I think one more question here. A couple of different people have asked this question as well. What about the breaths? Are we supposed to still breathe, deliver breaths into the lungs?
Okay, that's optional. If you had training in the CPR, we always teach breaths, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. But if you're not comfortable with doing the breaths, start your compressions. Because what they find out, a lot of people don't like to do the breath. They're afraid of something to do, so they don't do anything at all. But do chest compressions. Those are the most important thing. And if you know how to do breaths, do the breaths.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. If you have any other questions, please send them our way. If they're after this conversation wraps up, feel free to email us at puget.sound@heart.org. And we would love to answer those questions for you. But I really just want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being ready to save a life. And a huge thank you to our friends for their help today. Multicare Pulse Heart Institute for being a sponsor, Laura Vanderpool, and Dr. Snodgrass for sharing your story and your information with us. And thank you to Captain Hendricks and the Port of Seattle for demonstrating what we need to know around CPR. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic day. And we'll thank you for being here with us for this important training.
Is